Hey everybody, it's Chanoch from Modi'in, Israel, home of the Maccabees. I'm here with my good buddy and friend Mike Clayton in Franklin, North Carolina, and here's the latest Israel update. Hey Mike, how are you?
Okay, so you're in the home of the Maccabees. I'm in the home of, I don't know. Wow.
Boiled peanuts?
Oh, there you go. The home of boiled peanuts. All right. You know that you pulled me out on that one. Maybe, maybe there's something to be said there. Now, we have a lot of people that are going, why would you boil peanuts? And until you've had boiled peanuts, you just don't really know. And for those of you that say,
Y'all,
I've had boiled peanuts, I don't like them. Our response is good. Makes more for.
yeah, exactly.
Well, starting on that very spiritual note today, Hanok, of, I mean, where else in the world can you go on to a program? I mean, think about YouTube, Vimeo, everywhere you imagine in the world. Where can you go to a place that bridges the gap between the Maccabees and boiled peanuts?
We are the only ones, and now in the background I'm hearing, we are the champions, but we'll leave out the musical interlude for today. Singing is not the thing that you and I collectively or individually do all that well.
Yeah,
So we'll
that's
leave it at
true.
that.
So let's digress and talk about
Yeah.
what's happening in Israel.
Well, the big news this week, of course, is, His Excellency Jared Kushner came to Israel to take the first flight to Abu Dhabi, the capital of the United Arab Emirates, for a series of negotiations between the Americans, us Israelis, and the Emiratis. Well, just, the folks from the Emirates.
Okay.
And
The
the
Emiratis.
issue of
You may have heard that
yeah,
first here too.
well, it reminds me of, Desperado, the song, Desperado. But, again, we'll just have to do a special show of songs and free association. The thing that's interesting is the week before, America's Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, who I believe is a really good guy, came to clinch the deal for what would have been, notice I said would have been, the second quote-unquote normalization deal. Now, Pompeo is a much stronger negotiator than Jared Kushner. But he went to Sudan, and the Sudanese were like, well, we don't have that kind of authority to make that decision. This is the government of Sudan. So he went to Bahrain, and they, kind of gave him the Ralph Cramden response. Hamana, 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 hamana. So there is no other deal at this time. I'm, being especially facetious, more so than usual, because, people thought by now we'd be, running around in circles, with flower power buttons singing the dawning of the age of Aquarius. There is a Jewish sickness of wanting the world to like us. You hated us for so long, you killed us for so long, you persecuted us for so long, just be nice to us. That's what people think is going on in Emirates. Well, guess what? Here in Israel, we're running new infections at 2,000 per day, an infection rate of over 7% of those tested, which you'll say, wait a minute, that's much higher than anywhere else in the world, because we're not testing that many people. The Haredi, the ultra-Orthodox community, is generally ignoring COVID-19. The Arab communities in Israel are generally ignoring it. And guess what? They're getting sick. Well, there it is. You've got ultra-Orthodox, the Breslov group, going to Uman, Ukraine, no social distancing, no masks, no nothing, to pray at the grave of Rabbi Nachman.
Hmm.
which they want to do for Rosh Hashanah. Our coronavirus czar, every decree or suggestion he makes is overruled. The poor guy, if he had any smarts, would quit the job because he's got all the responsibility and zero authority.
Wow.
We had hoped that on September 1st, the government of Israel would announce a plan that would enable visitors to come to Israel from red countries. Red not being Republican, but red being in terms of coronavirus, i.e. the United States of America. The only whispers that I'm hearing is maybe by October the 15th, they'll be willing to sit and discuss it. So, I mean, this week will mark 6 months since the last time I was able to work.
Yeah.
And it's not just me, it's everyone involved in tourism and other businesses.
Oh yeah. I mean, I was listening to Moshe Kempinski yesterday, and he said, you know, they got the shop open, but there's nobody there. This is actually worse than it was during the Oslo wars, the second Intifada. You know, back then it was pretty much a ghost town. I remember getting out of the bus, going up. We were staying at what was then the Sheraton Hotel up on King George, and is now the Leonardo. Got out of the bus, checked in my room real quick, ran down to Ben Yehuda Street to see some people, and I mean, it was, you know, it was just like 7 o'clock. It had just gotten dark then, and turned the corner to go down to Ben Yehuda Street, and there's not a shop open. The security guard actually came over, and I was with somebody. The security guard came over and said, "What are y'all doing? Why are you here?" I said, "Well, you know, we're here on a tour." And he looked at me and went, "You have a tour here?" And it was like, you know, we had 3 heads. It was crazy. I mean, in that day, you'd have people in that day would cross the street to hug you. Today they, you know, may cross the street, but then they would, you know, stay 6 feet apart from you with a mask on. It's just the
we bump elbows.
I can't even imagine what it is. And then, you know, we've had to move our Connect to Israel tour to February 28th. It would be our departure date from the States. Anybody wants to, you know, look at that, it's connectisrael.com. We need to be prepared that whenever the governments and powers of this world get their act together, that we got some people on the ground in Israel to say we've been standing with you. But to imagine this year that for the festivals, there will be no parade, which you know, some people that can't stand the traffic jam that causes will say, great. There'll be no parade there. There will be no one will be going, you know, traveling from other countries to Israel for the festivals. It's just beyond my comprehension right now.
Yeah, it's possible that the European countries, ironically, that were, you know, hit so hard by the whole, you know, wave of COVID-19, you know, back in March and April, they're already green. They're already, you know, getting back to normal life. We in Israel did the exact reverse. We locked down really hard at the beginning, and we were then so busy jumping up and down, high-fiving each other that we did such a good job, we just let it slip.
Yeah.
And, you know, part of the problem is that we have no one until recently that's taken ownership of running this for the government. And Netanyahu has kept out Naftali Bennett, who was prepared to do it for political reasons, because he didn't want him to get kudos for doing a good job.
Yeah, well, political reasons are what's kind of driving everything in the world today. You know, I'm looking at Jerusalem Post. The big news is that Saudi Arabia is allowing an Israeli flight to go over their airspace. Okay. Yeah, that's what news is that? India is purchasing AWACS aircraft from Israel, selling AWACS aircraft to India. Something about that just doesn't quite settle real well in me. And at the same time, there was another a terrorist attack at Tupoak Junction, right at the where as we come across from Ariel, for those that are trying to get this in their mind, where I-5 comes across from Ariel and lines up with the Highway of the Patriarchs. Uh, the very this has been the site of how many terror attacks through the years, but here's another one. But I guess the good news is that that they've signed a peace agreement with or a ceasefire with Gaza. Is that how's that working out?
Well, what you'd have to do is look at history. How has every ceasefire agreement worked out? People here in Israel are congratulating each other that it's been 6 years since our last quote unquote war with the Hamas terrorists in Gaza, since 2014, when they kidnapped and murdered the 3 boys. Mm-hmm. So, it's just, it's almost like, you want to knock at people's heads saying, like, is anybody in there? Are you guys thinking about this?
Yeah.
And, we're watching the northern border with Hezbollah, and the band plays on.
Yeah, I'm thinking that ceasefire with Gaza is basically comes down to this: we ran out of balloons, and so we need to order some more from Alibaba and get some people over there blowing them back up, so we can send them into Israel so they can blow up.
More firebombs, right?
Yeah,
it's just it's bizarre, and the fact that we've turned our back on even the minuscule amount of sovereignty that America was allegedly willing to recognize in Judea and Samaria, we've turned our back on that for the ability to get money from United Arab Emirates towards research projects here, selling them weapons, etc. And I just know that this is not going to work out well. This is going to come back and haunt us the way up to 10 years ago we were selling major weapon systems to Turkey.
Yeah.
Has not worked out well for us.
Yeah. I just recorded a message. It'll be out tomorrow. I think it'll be tomorrow afternoon on a message I did years ago on sheep, wolves, and shepherds. And I think Mir Kahana would have enjoyed this message probably. And in that, I talk about that a shepherd understands a very simple fact. You never negotiate with wolves. A shepherd demands peace through strength, between as he's standing, not kneeling, between the sheep and the wolves. And all of this about peace. Okay, I mean, everybody wants peace. I mean, who in the world, in their right mind, wants war? Well, yeah,
of course.
Yeah, we could talk about that one for a little while. Those related to Esau and Ishmael, and the Amorites, and the Jebusites, and the Electrolytes, and all those others. But yeah, I mean, the list goes on. The list goes on of people that don't want peace. But there's this group of people that are trying for peace in man's strength, to the place that I think that there's a verse in Rav Shaul wrote this in 1 Thessalonians, and it says, "For when they say peace and safety, sudden destruction comes upon them." And so every time that I hear this of, well, we're going to have peace with this country and with this country and with this country, but the peace is based upon Israel giving up their strength. I mean, I just see this as a road leading to that, whatever that sudden destruction is. And we've seen
Yeah.
seen so many wars in Israel. I doubt that we're at the end of the wars in Israel.
No, not at this time. And you know what concerns me, as I've mentioned many times, that we in Israel will pay a price for the stupidity of our government,
Hmm.
because you've got Netanyahu pushing weapon sales from America and Israel to United Arab Emirates, and our defense ministry saying, no, 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 don't do it. But you know, Netanyahu acts as if he's the, you know, the totalitarian single leader of our country. But just to underscore a point, since so many of the folks who listen to our messages are Americans, America will be called to task for its role in all of this.
Yeah.
Now, when I heard Jared Kushner, who, you know, actually, if you had looked at his resume before Donald Trump was elected president, he's not the guy that you would have imagined is being sent around the world to negotiate all these things. When he said he doesn't see any reason why all 22 Arab nations won't have, you know, diplomatic relations with Israel, I'm wondering to myself, maybe he should just say no to drugs and not pick up the crack pipe. I mean, seriously, where is this coming from?
Well, there is an example of a man marrying into something that he wasn't really prepared for. No doubt about it.
This is, I mean, it's just astounding to listen to that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it's really putting on a set of blinders. And again, here in Israel, the idea that an El Al plane, actually two of them, flew over Saudi Arabia is like, whoa, man, this is the greatest thing ever. Really? Is
Well,
this the new Baal? Is this the new, you know, idol that we're worshiping? The Saudis?
yeah. Well, it's making covenants with your enemies, and I think there's a few verses, maybe there's one or two in the Torah somewhere that talks about that, and the rest of the Tanakh from the Torah talks about the consequences of doing such, and it never really turned out very well then. I doubt if it's going to turn out very well now. But you know, your big news in Israel today is a jet flying over the UAE. Our big news. I mean, I'm looking at my other screen here. Here's our breaking news headline this morning in America. Okay, now hang on to your seats, seat belts on, hang on to whatever you got. But this is our breaking news in America today. Nancy Pelosi got her hair done. I mean, yeah. So Miss Nancy, just lost a note there. Wow, that did good, huh? I mean, it was so good that it knocked Hanok off the air. All right. Yeah, Nancy Pelosi went into a salon in San Francisco and got her hair done. All right, how crazy is that? Well, we lost Hanok from the great city of Modi'in, and so I'll just go ahead and say from both of us, shalom. And in these days, be wise. Pray for discernment of what is going on. Shalom, everyone.